I gotta do a knife-only playthrough of this game. Ever since seeing the footage of Leon stopping the chainsaw and learning about the parries you could do with a knife, I knew I had to do a knife-only run of this game at some point. So, after spending a bit of time enjoying some normal playthroughs, I sharpened my knife, stretched my legs, and started my knife-only run. The rules of the run were the following. Difficulty was set to New Game Standard. This means no upgrades get carried over and no fighting knife at the start of the game. No primal knife either, the unlockable one with infinite durability. We have to manage our knife collection throughout the run. All ranged weapons are banned. This means no guns, grenades, or animal byproducts. The only ways allowed to deal damage are through the knife and melee attacks. In the event that progression is strictly impossible using only a knife, an unupgraded handgun is allowed to bypass only what is explicitly blocking progression. This applies to other special weapons as well. With those rules out of the way, let's get started. This version of RE4 stars Leon S. Kennedy from an alternate universe in which everything is the same, but he's from London. Tasked with rescuing the president's daughter, he's shipped off to Europe where she was last seen with nothing but a handgun with 10 bullets, a knife, and a can of Axe body spray. Kinda seems like the president doesn't want his daughter back that badly. First chapter is pretty straightforward. Break into a man's house, kill him when he tries to defend his property, sprinkle some crack on him, and then jump out the window. After a brief walk through the countryside, we get to the village. Previously, I'd mentioned that the only weapons we were allowed were the knife and melee attacks, but I actually neglected to mention one more very crucial weapon in our arsenal: cowardice. The village section ends when we kill enough enemies or survive for long enough, and right now, since we only have an unupgraded knife, the former isn't looking very promising, especially not when the good Dr. Salvador is trying to give us our annual physical. So I just ran in circles until everyone went to bingo, sprinted past the farm and the lakeside, freed the guy I keep seeing pictures of shirtless with Leon. While Leon tries to figure out how to steal Luis's jacket to add to his collection, he is approached by the Big Cheese, who proceeds to enforce the rules of the playthrough when Leon tries to point a gun at him. Leon awakens chained to Luis, a situation that will feel fanfiction for years to come. Using his muscular arms trained by constant stabbing, Leon breaks free and we begin Chapter 2. Now is a good time to talk about the merchant and his role in this run, namely, how he really isn't there at all. He pretty much just exists to upgrade and repair the knife, and since we can safely sell all ammo, weapons, and crafting materials, we can max out the knife pretty much in our first meeting, leaving him as just a repair guy. Spinel trading isn't much use either. Spinel? Spinal?
Spinel. Spinel.
Spinel. Spinel trading isn't very useful since most of the trades are for gun attachments we can't use or ways to make money that we don't need. I just ignored this pretty much my entire playthrough. There is one item that is somewhat useful to us, and that's the red attaché case, which increases the drop rate of red herbs, but we won't be getting that until the castle. Speaking of healing, the merchant sells one first aid spray every chapter, so you might as well spend your money on that. Get the inventory size upgrade too. You don't really need it, but, you know, might as well flex. For the chapter, flawlessly run past everything on the cliffside, bird up, and open the gate. Then turn down the doctor's second opinion and enter the house of Queso Grande. Ponder the orb and grab the insignia key. Unfortunately, our path is blocked by Great Gouda, who once again punishes Leon for breaking the rules of the run. Before he can disqualify us, we're saved by a mysterious, morally gray figure who dashes out of sight. Remembering that he's out of eggs after we took his last one out of the oven, Eminent Emmental rushes out of the house to buy more, ending the chapter. Next, we exit the house and save the real main character of the game, then make our way to the church where they're holding Ashley. Unfortunately, Leon is a filthy sinner and the church is locked, so we'll need the key from across the lake. Furthermore, the only boat across the lake is out of gas, since the last person who used it is the same kind of person to put empty milk cartons back in the fridge. Run through the fish farm, grab some gas, kick a guy so hard he explodes, and fill up the boat. First boss, Lago, is the first time in the game where you're required to use something other than the knife. You can't even pull out your knife in this section, and it probably wouldn't help much if you could anyway, so I just had to do this fight normally and throw harpoons at him until he died. A harpoon is like a knife, right? Anyway, after we beat Lago and start Chapter 4, we get our introduction to the Type 1 Plaga heads. These guys actually aren't too bad to knife fight. If you're aiming at the Plaga itself, you could take one down in decent enough time. To parry them, listen for that chittering sound they make before they attack and put your guard up. The most dangerous thing about them is actually how much they drain your durability, but I'll talk about that later. Get some more cardio in, grab the church insignia, and head back to the church. Big McLarge Huge is the first boss you can actually fight with a knife, and there isn't really much to say. Stay behind him and slash at his ankles like a handsome Chucky doll. It gets even easier when the dog shows up, so there's really no challenge. Head back to the church and pick up Ashley from Bible study. Next was the cabin section with Luis. Gonna be honest, the cabin section was probably the hardest part of this entire run. Progress in the cabin defense is based on the number of kills you make, and without an Ashley to dangle like a carrot on a stick, you're not getting any free backstabs. The tough part isn't even killing the enemies, it's being able to kill enough of them before your knives break. Remember my comment about Ploggerheads? They are massive drains on knife resources for a couple reasons. One, the parry-kick combo doesn't really work with them like it does with regular Ganado, since they don't really stagger, which means the only way you're going to be killing them is by just stabbing them a whole bunch. Two, due to their stagger resistance, they're going to be attacking a lot more, which means more parrying from you, which means more durability loss on your knives. And three, preventing a Ploggerhead from spawning means knifing one while they're down. This finisher costs a significant chunk of durability, and this section has a lot of Ploggerheads spawning. All of this together means that very quickly you'll be left with nothing to defend yourself if you're not careful. Luckily, Leon has two other weapons he's got below his belt, and they're completely unbreakable. That's right, his testicles. Legs. I got past this section by coasting on kicks as much as possible, and saving the combat knife only for parrying to get more kicks or killing Ploggerheads. Luis is a godsend in this section since he can down enemies for you to set up kicks without having to use up knife durability. I exclusively used kitchen knives to stop Plaga spawns since I've been building up a bulk of them from using the combat knife, and breaking them is a lot better than using up your main knife here. If you get grabbed, don't use the knife and just take the damage. If you're sticking with Luis like you should, he can break you out of grabs on his own. Love you, babe. With a bit of practice and luck, I finally made it out of the cabin. Pretend that didn't happen. The next major challenge involves getting the crank from these lovely ladies. Previously, I've dealt with chainsaw enemies the same way I deal with most of my problems, by avoiding them. But now that they have something that I need, I'll need to confront them head on, or at least that's what my therapist says. Unsurprisingly, fighting two enemies who can instant kill at close range with just a knife is a little difficult. I discovered that you can actually use the Molotov Ganado to inflict friendly fire on the Bella sisters, but this takes a really long time and is pretty finicky. I needed a better strategy. I needed cheese. Turns out the Bella sisters have an area in which they are bound to. Leave the area, and they'll de-aggro and walk back to their starting positions. That area ends at this set of gates, back near the beginning of this section. Now all you have to do is lead them to the gates, then stab them when they turn around. Just rinse and repeat for both sisters, grab the crank, call Ashley, and get out of there. Now that strategy may have been a good bit of cheese, but cheese has a smell that can attract some unwanted parties. Sure enough, Sizable Stilton is on the scene. Feeling that his dairy-based position of leadership is threatened, he gives chase. By the way, did you know there's a unique cutscene if Formidable Feta catches Ashley during this section? He just scoops her up and jumps off the cliff like, "Bye, have a great time." Anyway, it's time for our final showdown with Huge Halloumi. I developed a pretty good strategy for this boss. Phase 1, just stand behind him and stab his butt. He'll try to turn and grab you, but as long as you're on the move to his back, he'll miss. Occasionally, he might try to employ the tactic of spin to win, but just climb up to the upper level when you see him do that. Eventually, Prodigious Parmesan's spine will snap like a cheese string and you'll move on to Phase 2. Phase 2 is all about avoiding attacks until Colossal Cotija makes the mistake of getting into stabbing distance. You want to be standing on this spot to the right of the room for most of the fight. When he throws boards, move diagonally to the left while running to avoid the attack. Make sure you don't run too early in the animation or else you'll run out of space. If he's about to throw barrels, turn around and climb up the ladder. As long as you're quick, the barrels will miss you and hit the corner where you won't have to worry about the fire pools. Drop back down to your original spot once you reach the top. When Portly Paneer comes in to take a swing, just move to the left and grate off a few pieces. He's got some other melee attacks, but just like in Phase 1, he has trouble scratching his back, so... With enough practice and more knife thrusts, Leon puts an end to Massive Mozzarella, and I can finally put an end to all these cheese jokes. On to the castle! Goodbye, Mendez. Now that we're in the castle, we're going to be running into a lot of new enemies and scenarios, starting with the Type 2 Plaga. Here's my advice for how to fight it. Don't. I'm sure there's a good strategy for knifing them to death one-on-one, but it's a lot easier to just avoid them. The Castle Gate section actually wasn't that bad, or maybe I just got lucky. For the rules of the run, I could only use the cannon when it was strictly necessary to progress. That means I could shoot down the castle gate and that's it. No pointing it at enemies or the catapults. As it turns out though, the catapults actually help you out here, since they'll end up blasting the enemies more than you, giving more clearance to make it to the objectives. Just cross your fingers that Ashley doesn't get hit with a catapult out in the open. You're pretty much boned if that happens. The Gyarados goes about the way you'd expect, stab him in the back till he dies. The Waterhall is... okay, I'm gonna be honest here. I did the Waterhall first try, and I'm not really sure how it happened. I kicked and knifed people that needed kicking and knifing, and I somehow avoided most of the Type 2 Plaga spawns down in the lower section. I think it's because Plaga don't spawn on knife finishers, so there ended up being less of them. Other than that, I was able to turn the wheels before I got interrupted and ran up the steps. Turns out the enemies in the lower section don't follow you up. As long as you climb the stairs, you're pretty much solid. Protecting Ashley, as you might expect, is, well, impossible with just the knife. Had to pull out the old piece for this part. I'm not proud of glorifying guns, but sometimes there's just no other option. Glorifying knives, on the other hand, is fucking sick and would never cause any problem. Oh no, Ashley! So, Ashley gets put into timeout, and now we have to find a new pretty girl to fill her absence. Luckily, the merchant, along with being a fine arms dealer, is also an excellent matchmaker, because he managed to hook us up with the prettiest girl in town. Body armor. It would not be an exaggeration to say that body armor carried this run, tanking damage better than Ashley ever could. Attend a sermon, meet your ex, and vindicate the entire point of this run, and then it's on to the battlements. This section is pretty similar to the castle gate, right down to using the cannon as a glorified key. Not much to say here, there's a lot of enemies and not enough knives, so lean on your body armor and the catch of the day to push through. Chapter 9 starts and we're back with the now side chick Ashley. Highly suggest opening up the gate back to the fountain area to gain access to the merchant, since now he'll be able to exclusive your knife, makes the dogs a joke. Next, we need the pieces for the Chimera statue. The snake head is easy as you'd expect. The lion head also didn't cause too much trouble. Armadors can't really stand up to the exclusive knife. Once you bait out an attack, it's over. You can knife their weak point while they're recovering, kick, and then knife them to death before they have a chance to do anything else. As long as you're conscious of where the other Armadors are while you do this, there's really no issue. The gallery and the goat head, on the other hand, can go pound sand. No haha funny grenade skips here, gotta do this room legit. As it turns out, the key to success in this room is actually Ashley, who's showing off just how well she can mimic a worm on a hook. Enemies that pick up Ashley can be instantly killed with a knife finisher, which helps a lot when it comes to thinning out the room. Enemies killed like this don't spawn Plaga either, and there's definitely already enough of those around. Plaga enemies are actually somewhat beneficial here, since they don't target Ashley, meaning you have finer control in moving them where you want them to go. The goal of the room is to ideally reduce the enemies down to a small group of Plaga only, and once you do that, you'll have a much easier time maneuvering around them since you won't have to babysit Ashley. If Ashley gets tagged and there are only Plaga enemies left, just wait it out. She'll actually recover on her own given enough time, since no one is trying to grab her. Then lead the slow Plaga enemies to some corner of the room and get out of there. If Ashley ever does get grabbed, just remember that there's only one exit out of the room. Sometimes it's better to wait and let Illuminato's taxi do the work for you rather than diving in yourself. Speaking of Illuminato's taxi, guess it's just you and me again, body armor. Off to the throne room. Invistadors are hardly worth mention, stab them till they die. Double Gyarados, on the other hand, a bit more of a problem. Once again, it's a problem of knife durability more than anything else. It takes a full bar of knife to kill a Gyarados with backstabs, and now that we've added another one to the mix, plus like 3 waves of regular enemies, unless you're drowning in boot knives, you're not going to have the stock for this. So, what to do? First, make the Gyarados do the work for you. Put the regular grunts between you and the Gyarados and make some noise. It's a long process, but it'll save on knife durability, and it's just generally safer than fighting yourself. Second, don't do the knife finisher. I don't have exact numbers on this, but it's pretty clear that the damage to durability loss ratio of simply aiming and stabbing normally far outweighs the ratio when you're performing the canned animation. You can even hit the Plaga multiple times during a single backstabbing. Just watch out for thrashing claws. I'd recommend killing the regular Gyarados through aimed stabs and then just relying on the regular backstabs for the armored one, since it's a little finicky to hit the parasite through the armor. After the Gyarados and another brief encounter with more Invistadors, it's Verdugo up next. You can parry or avoid pretty much all of Verdugo's attacks, but while I suppose it is technically possible to kill Verdugo knife only, it's really easier to just run in circles until the elevator shows up. Trust me, I tried to put this guy down, and after going through all 4 nitrogen showers and using up all my combat knife durability, he was still kicking, so I said fuck it and got on the elevator. Chapter 11 is when we're reunited with our jacket bro, Luis, and it's also the chapter where knife only goes to die. Double Gigante and the minecart section all require more than what the knife can give. For the Double Gigante, killing the unarmored one is easy enough. Acupuncture his feet and then show him to the hot tub. The armored one is a lot less susceptible to a day at the spa. You can't stab through his armor and he'll immediately move from the center of the room if you try to open the hatch. The only way you're taking him down is popping the dynamite on his back, and since Leon doesn't have stretchy arms, you're gonna have to use bullets. Shoot the dynamite while the Gigante is in the center of the room, and then pull the hatch while it's done. The minecart section after is quite literally a rail shooter, with instant kills if you don't shoot certain targets in time, so we're gonna have to break the rules again. I briefly considered meticulously testing what is the minimum number of shots I could fire to clear the minecart area without dying, but I have a condition known as being a lazy bitch, so if it's all the same to you... After ignoring some more bugs, we run into Krauser, who is also doing a knife-only run. However, his ability to actually throw his knives, combined with the fact that he just threw them at Luis, really feels like it's going against the spirit of an RE knife-only run. So we gotta beat his ass. For the fight itself, listen, we all know the deal with the Krauser fight. It's cool as fuck. Knife-only is literally the only way to do it. Stab him till you win. I think it is fun to point out that this part starts with a realistic depiction of a knife fight in the cutscene, but when gameplay starts, you're doing knife-to-knife parries like you're in an anime. God, I love this game. Even when it tears my heart out. Pour one out for the homie. There have been a couple sections in this playthrough where I've thought, man, I can't imagine what this is like on Professional. The Clock Tower lift is one of these sections. Castelo Salazar is famous through all of Europe for the shittiest elevator in history with its carrying capacity of 1, and all the tourists can't wait to hitch a ride. You're not able to stop anyone from jumping onto the lift, which means you'll have to fight every single one. Most of them will end up as Plaga too, since you have to leave the priest alive as well. And to top it all off, crossbows at every angle. The only saving grace is that the exclusive knife is a real workhorse here. You usually kill at least one person as soon as they get on the lift, and if you're quick, you can kill anyone who's about to turn into a Plaga before it happens. Honestly though, my strategy pretty much just boiled down to knife anything within arm's length while inhaling my entire supply of herbs. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for body armor. After walking across the one part in the entire game with rickety floors, it's time to go up against Salazar. Eggs are not knives, so we're gonna have to get through his entire health bar by ourselves. Find this pillar in the room and try to keep it between you and Salazar at all times. Much like Phase 2 Mendez, you're just waiting and avoiding attacks until he comes down into knife range to give you an opening. Try to keep him at the corners of the pillar so that if he ever does the spray, the move where he's most vulnerable afterwards, you can just quickly run up and stab him. More than anything else, this feels like a battle of attrition, since Salazar spends more time spidering along the walls like the carrion monster than he does actually fighting you. Also, since most of his attacks are ranged, he, surprise, really likes to keep his distance when attacking, which means he, more likely than not, will end up whittling away your health throughout. But hey, that's why we've got body armor, and 3 full heals. With Salazar dead, we're finished with the castle. Only one more area to go. After getting a ride with everybody's favorite bioterrorist, we get to the final stretch of the game, Sadler's Private Island. Unless you want to be cleaning boot marks off your face, I'd suggest just hustling past all the enemies until you hit the facility, where we're introduced to the regenerators. You don't have to fight the first 2, and on account of them being so dummy thick, avoiding them is easy enough. That isn't the case for getting the level 3 keycard though. Normally, you're supposed to use the thermal scope to identify which regenerator swallowed the wrench. That way, you can just pick and choose your target and leave the other ones alone. However, that scope needs to be attached to a gun, and last time I checked, I left the Picatinny rail for my knife at home. So, we're just gonna have to guess. Killing regenerators with knives, though, surprisingly easy. Quickly figured out that you can start by doing the wide slashes to cut off larger portions of their body to reveal the plug inside, and then switch to the stabs to specifically target them. I think the devs might realize how easy these regenerators would be to kill with a knife, because next we are reunited with Ashley, who will predictably make our life more difficult. Alright, let's go wallow in garbage. This part is actually doable with just knife only. If you turn around and start running immediately after flipping the power switch, you can make it across the bridge before the regenerator wakes up and before the enemies grab Ashley. After getting out of the dump with the garbage fish, we need to defend Ashley as she uses a wrecking ball to break a wall. I guess Ashley was going to university for construction. This part's pretty brutal. Once again, it's a matter of knife durability more than anything. The combat knife broke before the Type 3 plug even showed up, so you'll want to rely on friendly fire and the wrecking ball to clear out groups. The RPG guys pose a bit more of an issue since you can't actually reach them with your knife. Instead, we'll have to get creative. Fuck. Okay, I can't actually get up there. Oh, he hurt himself! He blew himself off the platform! The wall will probably break before you clear the area. Luckily, you don't have to actually kill everybody to advance, so as soon as the wall breaks, just get out of there and hope Ashley follows you. Unfortunately, your victory is short-lived, as Ashley's operation of heavy machinery without a complete license was reported to the authorities, and she is promptly arrested. This ends up working out for us since we're about to have another anime knife fight with Krauser, and as we all know, women are not allowed to be relevant in anime. Fight off Krauser, carefully disarm his gauntlet of traps, and then face off against his final form. So, I fought Krauser knife only on professional before, and what makes him so difficult is how fucking hard it is to parry him in his final form, since perfect parries are the only valid ones on professional difficulty. On standard though, you can just push his shit in no problem. Look, I fucked up his parry and he still got stunned. Ah, catharsis. Speaking of catharsis, here comes some more in the form of rotor blades and a 50 caliber machine gun. Let your boy Mike do all the heavy lifting when he can. No need to put yourself in harm's way. If you do, just make sure to do it at the top of a ladder. We'll have to break the rules again for destroying the AA gun, because unless there's some secret passage up to the turret rooftop, there's no way for us to destroy it without shooting it. Don't worry, the game punishes your transgressions quite severely with the next segment to open the gate. Between two turrets, very tight walkways filled with enemies, and the brute with the auto crossbow who just gives you the tims whenever you get close, you're going to need a lot of luck and healing items to get past this part. The strategy I went with was going to the left switch first, then jumping down to the ground and taking the ladder up to the midpoint of the right catwalk. You need to ignore all the enemies on the way over, because after pulling the first switch, you're racing against the brute spawning. You should be able to pull the second switch just as the brute jumps down onto the catwalk. Now that you're boxed in with Pighead and all the Ganado, what's ideally going to happen is that the brute will try to fire and end up hitting instead the Ganado in front of him. While he reloads, he'll hopefully have left enough space in the walkway to let you slip past and bolt for the gate. I say hopefully because the strat worked the first time I tried it, and I just didn't bother to reproduce the results. Maybe I just got lucky, but I'd argue you could probably make your own luck with enough first aid sprays. Don't use too many of them though. The run up to the altar room has enough space to let you move past enemies, but between the mine leading up the stairs and this dude, you might need a few of them. Once you're past that though, the hard part is over. Microwave Leon and Ashley like a TV dinner, and then it's time for Sadler. Wow, that worked really well. That was actually not hard in the slightest. And that's it for Sadler. Seriously, I don't have any strategy or anything to give like the other bosses. I used the fighting knife, tugged his legs, and just stabbed until he died. I couldn't really tell you what was going on because my screen just looked like this 90% of the time, but I assume I was just stun locking him with how much damage the knife was doing. He might accidentally step on you a couple of times, but when your inventory looks like this, not really an issue. The only thing worth noting about this fight is, of course, how you can't finish his final form knife only. If you wait too long to fire the rocket launcher, the game will just kill you, so, guess you win this one, Sadler. Hey, check out this cool jet ski trick, though. Woo! You get 1,000%! So, beating RA4 with knife only. Technically impossible, unless somebody knows some glitches to skip the cannons, minecart, turrets, etc. But ignoring the parts where you're forced to use something other than the knife, actually quite doable. Most fights you can just run past, and for any that you have to take, the knife does a pretty good job of actually killing things, and gets even stronger once you exclusive it. And since you don't have to spend money upgrading guns, you end up drowning in health items from all the first aid sprays you can afford to buy. Not that you'll need a lot of them once you get body armor, since it negates so much damage and you'll never be worried about spending too much money to repair it. Granted, this was all done on standard difficulty, where enemy damage is low and you can parry attacks by mashing spacebar like a frightened gibbon. Would I do another knife-only run on professional? I'd say yes, but in that manner you say yes when you run into an old friend and after chatting they suggest that you hang out sometime and you're like, yeah, both of you knowing fully well it's not happening. Like, you want to, but you both know that life is busy and it'll be another year before you speak to each other again. And when you do, you'll have the exact same conversation, but nothing will change. So, will there be a knife-only professional run? Yeah, man, I'd love to hang out.
You proved you could handle yourself. Even if you could use a lesson in knife safety.